So on today's episode, we're going to go over what I watched in the month of November of 2024. So, as you may already know, it's been kind of a whirlwind month and everything, what with the election in the US and all this stuff. So, lots of shit going on. We'll make it through, I'm sure. We'll try our best. But let's talk a little bit about the movies I watched this month, though. So, let's start with the first one I watched on November 1st. It was actually for an upcoming episode I'm doing, which is for Girl Interrupted from 1999. So, this movie is Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie, which won her an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. This is about a girl named Susanna who is put into a mental institution in the late 60s, and she is now having to kind of go through that. She's put in there for about 18 months, and then it's just her kind of experience being in it. And she meets, Lisa, who is Angelina Jolie. She meets Daisy, who is Brittany Murphy, a couple different people, of course. Also, I'll get to TV shows maybe at the end, but this movie actually has somebody in one of the TV shows that I've been watching, so I'll talk about that a little later. But I gave this a 4 and a little heart. I just said girls being girls, because that's what it is, and it's cool to have seen this kind of a movie. This is a movie I always kind of had a little special place in my heart for, and you'll also hear that episode this month. So, it's that's what I watched in the beginning of last month, though. The next thing I watched was actually on Shudder, and it was a movie I had been looking to watch, which was called All You Need Is Death from 2023. This is an Irish movie, and it's about a young couple who they collect like rare folk ballads in Ireland, I guess. And they discover the dark side of love when they surreptitiously record and translate an ancient taboo folk song from the deep forgotten past. And for me, I said no thanks. I gave this a 2.5 personally. I didn't really connect with this at all, and I'm not really sure how it's supposed to be like scary or tension building or any of this sort of stuff. I just didn't really care for it. I thought the singing in it was cool, but like other than that, I just didn't really connect with the story. The only person who I knew who they kind of were was one of the not main ladies, but like she's the only person who's kind of notable is what's her name? Olwen, I think her name is. It is Olwen Forer or whatever her name is. She is Sally from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 on Netflix, and she's also in Mandy with Nicolas Cage. Where she plays one of the people in the cult in that movie. So, I just didn't really care for that one. So I think you can skip it. The next thing I watched was actually my second movie I watched. It was a Billy Wilder movie because I had watched All About Eve before, but I decided to pull up on The Apartment from 1960. This is a Best Picture winner. It has Jack Lemmon in it. It also has Ray Walston. I forgot that he was in it, but he is. Shirley MacLaine, all the things. This is a Best Picture winner back in 1961, I believe. But this movie kind of rocked. If you don't know what this movie is about, it's about Bud Baxter, who is Jack Lemmon. He works at an insurance company in New York City, and he is letting his bosses use his apartment for their pretty much extramarital affairs. And it's not until he meets Shirley MacLaine's character, who's Fran, who is a elevator operator in this building. There's some shit that goes down from there, and honestly, I really liked this movie. I gave it a 4 and a little heart. I said this was great, and I think the fact that Shirley MacLaine didn't like win an Oscar for this, she was nominated. I think it's a crime personally. I thought she was so good in this movie, and it's just a good time. If you didn't already know this either, I actually saw Promises, the Broadway show many years ago. It's probably 15 years at this point now. But with Sean Hayes and Kristen Chenoweth, I went there. It was my first Broadway show I ever saw. And if you don't already know, Promises, the musical, is actually literally pretty much an adaptation of The Apartment, because it was a popular movie back in the day. And also, I will probably be, spoiler alert, I will be covering a movie next year called Loser from 2000, which is an Amy Heckerling movie, and it is a loose remake on The Apartment. So when I cover that, I will talk a little bit more about The Apartment as a whole, and we'll do some compare and contrast type of things, especially since I've now finally watched this. But I personally enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I can understand why this is some people's really big favorite movie. And again, we'll talk a little bit about how this movie, especially too, also kind of influenced one of the TV shows I've been watching as well. So that's kind of interesting. The next thing I watched was a little movie from 2002 is Orange County by Mike White. He wrote this movie. Mike White, for those who don't know, he's the guy who did The White Lotus. He's done a couple different things as well. This is an MTV movie. But yeah, Mike White, he's a bisexual man. He did like School of Rock, Nacho Libre. He did some of the Despicable Me movies. Or he did one of them at least, Pitch Perfect 3. But Orange County is one of his early scripts that he did. So that's kind of cool. And this is the one with Colin Hanks in it and Jack Black. Skylar Fisk is in there as well. But yeah, it's about a boy named Sean, who is Colin Hanks. He is from Orange County, California, and he is dreaming of going to Stanford to become a writer, but he is trying to escape his kind of like dysfunctional home. He runs into a complication when his college counselor, played by Lily Tomlin at his school, sends the wrong application on his behalf. He gets rejected from Stanford, and now he has to go on kind of like a goose chase, if anything, to try to see if he can get accepted into Stanford. This movie, I gave it a 3 and a little heart. It was totally fine, nothing more, nothing less. I think as time goes on, if I watch this movie anymore, I think I'll end up liking it a little bit more, but I do think this is a perfectly good movie. It's perfectly fine. Like I said, 3 stars out of 5. I do like the use of Phantom Planet's California, which, for those who don't know, was like I think it was the OC theme song or one of the theme song. Yeah, the theme song to it, I think. But it was used in this movie before that, which I thought was kind of good. And I definitely put that on my Apple Music list. So yeah, that's what I did. But anyway. So then actually the day of the election, I decided I needed to be patriotic at some point, and I went to an oldie but a goodie. I watched Dick from 1999. You already know about Dick, but it's about these 2 high school girls played by Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams. They end up becoming secret youth advisors to President Nixon, and they end up overthrowing the government. And you know what? We need more Betsy and Arlene in our lives. 100%. I just said you suck, comma Dick. I love this movie a lot. I think it's so fun and silly, and I really think this is just something where I tend to. It was between this and Election I was going to watch, kind of, and of course you know I love Election, but I decided I wanted a little bit of this, so it's still a movie that I think is a banger. And I also This Ends at Prom, that podcast, they actually did an episode on this, and they both liked it as well, so I like that as well. I knew that, it's a good movie. I like it. So there you go. The next film I watched was actually for an upcoming episode as well. I watched Go from 1999. I then also watched this again in preparation for the episode again. So I watched the first time I watched it was just to kind of refresh my memory on it. And then the next time I watched it was actually in preparation for the episode I was doing, or I will be doing. So this movie, if you don't already know, it's Doug Liman. So he's the guy from Swingers, and he's done a couple other things as well, like Mr. and Mrs. Smith and whatever. But it's about it's kind of an intermixing story. It's about a girl named Rana, played by Sarah Polley, and she is about to get kicked out of her apartment, and she has to make money. So she decides to be a drug dealer for a night. In concert with that, there's another employee of the grocery store they work at, who goes to Las Vegas with his buddies and has a wild time. And then in addition to that, you have a secret gay couple who are soap opera actors, and they are doing a sting operation to try to bust a drug dealer, and a whole lot of shit goes down. So anyway, there's a lot to this movie, but I personally like it. I give it a 4 and a little heart. And again, I watched it later in the month, of course, as well. But I think this movie just gets better on a rewatch. I really need to go and try and find this to get it on Blu-ray or whatever, because I think this is just something where I'm going to keep watching it. I'll probably end up watching it in December too, because it is kind of a secret Christmas movie, but it was a good time, so that's what I ended up watching. The next thing I watched was actually from 2017, and I was on my list for a while because I never really got around to it, but I decided to watch Happy Death Day from 2017, like I said. This is the movie where it's pretty much Groundhog's Day, but throw horror into it. It's a Blumhouse movie, and it is directed by Christopher Landon, the gay son of Michael Landon. But yeah, this is about a girl named Tree or Teresa. She is caught in a kind of weird time warp between, she keeps getting killed and it's the day of her murder, and she must now identify the killer before she won't survive her deaths anymore. So that's also a part of it too, because she can't keep dying all the time, because at some point she'll die in real time. So yeah, for me, I had never seen this movie at all. I'd always heard of it. And for me, this was a good time. I enjoyed it. I've never seen the movie Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. I don't know how much of a Bill Murray girl I am, to be honest, but that's just me. But I think that this movie is just really, really interesting and good. I know some people out there maybe don't like it as much, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I loved the twist at the end. I think this movie is really well done in terms of doing a PG-13 horror movie, because I think it just does enough where I'm like, oh no, I kind of banged with this. And I would actually say, like, no, go watch this if you haven't already. I think it's a fun time. And also I don't know how much of a Blumhouse person I am either. So it's interesting that I'm like, hey, yeah, this is actually a good Blumhouse movie. So that worked out. But yeah, so then the next thing I watched was actually for a previous episode I just posted 2 weeks ago, I think. And that was VHS from 2012. And this is an anthology horror movie where a bunch of VHS tapes are watched by people. And it's just different stories and stuff, really. So it's a group of misfits who are doing some douchebag asshole stuff. And they're pretty much burglarizing this desolate house, and one after the other they watch these VHS tapes, and these found footage stories are fucking crazy. You can go listen to my episode on that if you want to know my ranking, but I pretty much just put my ranking in my Letterboxd review, so I'm not going to do it now. But yeah, this one for me, I gave it a 3. I think out of what I think, at least, I have watched all of the VHSs because that's just who I am. But anyway, I'm going to keep watching them until they stop making them, really, at this point. But I think for this, there are better entries in this movie series, I think, this franchise. But I had to watch this one. It was also funny too, because since Wicked came out this month, and Ariana Grande had, Cynthia Erivo and all that have done the press junkets and stuff, but Ariana was on Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers' Las Cosristas. It's funny because they talked about, because her and Bowen are friends, because they worked on Wicked together, but then they also did the SNL stuff as well, in preparation of her movie being the movie being released and everything. But it's funny because they talked about how they watch horror movies, because Ariana Grande actually likes horror movies, she watches those, and they talked about how they watched VHS in the episode, and I love how she refers to the succubus in the amateur night segment, where she says this fierce goblin woman just rips off 7 dicks, and I'm just like, she doesn't rip off 7 dicks, she does rip off a dick, but I like fierce goblin woman. That's kind of great, actually. She's a succubus, but I mean, semantics, whatever. Who cares? It's Ariana Grande. It's fine. Please put Ariana Grande in a horror movie, please. I want to see it. I am fascinated by that. But yeah, so that's what I watched. Fun times. Go check out my episode on it if you want to know more. The next thing I watched was actually from Canopy. Get your library cards, everybody. It was a good time. This was called Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains from 1982. If you don't know what this movie is, I get it, because I wouldn't understand why. Corinne Burns, who is a young Diane Lane, she is has these plans for a band she has. It's this kind of punk band, before Riot Girl was a thing, called the Fabulous Stains. And her mom has since passed, not too long before. And her band go on this tour with this other band, and a bunch of shit goes down, really. This is directed by Lou Adler, who was a part of Rocky Horror Picture Show. They were a part of that. This movie is an interesting one. It's super feminist as hell. I really enjoyed myself with it personally. I gave it a 3.5. it's kind of a nice early 80s movie. I thought the end of it was kind of jarring. I'm not going to spoil that, but it's a fascinating movie, and it would definitely be one that I would check on the show. Really, I would love to talk more about it, and yeah, it's just an interesting one. I would love to try to find a guest, who maybe knows this movie and who can, talk about that kind of shit. But like, I really enjoyed it personally. Yeah, I'd probably watch this again personally. Yeah. I always like a good early 80s movie as well. I'm not opposed to those. So yeah. The next thing I watched from there was I watched Road Trip from 2000. This had been on my list for a minute. It was on Paramount Plus. And to be honest, so if you don't know what Road Trip is, this is very much a movie after the onslaught of like American Pie and stuff. So it was definitely within that. It came out literally the year after, and it was Todd Phillips, who has done the Joker movies. He just did the recent one as well, but he also did like Old School and The Hangover and things like that. But anyway, with this movie, like, it's funny. So this is about Breckin Meyer, who has a he and Rachel Blanchard, his girlfriend, they go to different schools. He goes to school at Ithaca College, I believe, and then she goes to school in Austin, Texas. So Breckin Meyer thinks that Rachel Blanchard is cheating on him, and in retaliation, kind of, he has sex with with Amy Smart, and he films this one night stand he has, and then he realizes by accident that he thinks that the videotape has been sent to his girlfriend, and now he has to borrow the car of this guy on campus, played by DJ Qualls, and it's him and his friends. They have to go on a wild road trip, really, and yeah, I will probably also be covering this next year. I have it on the list to do, so that'll be an interesting time. But what's funny about this movie? I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5. This is a generally middle of the road movie in regards to sex comedies, but to be honest with you, like, it's actually all things considered, it's a pretty tame movie when it comes to that. Like, it's not like super, I don't know, it's not like super crude or super horrid in terms of anything. Like, it's very middle of the road, like I said. Like, it's just kind of dudes being dudes, to be honest. And the only thing about it that I think kind of doesn't age the best, to be honest, is Tom Green. I feel like you could take him out of this movie and it wouldn't change really anything. And other than that, it's literally just kind of a middle of the road story about these guys going on a road trip. They're very much a precursor to something like The Hangover, of course. So that's a different story, but still, I can understand, the parallels a little bit as well. Plus, it's also fun to see someone like Rachel Blanchard getting work. I love the fact that, you have like Breckin Meyer in here, apparently being a college student. I was like, bitch, you haven't been in college in like 10 years. What do you mean? I don't even think you went to college. Like, what the hell? But anyway, I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief. It's a whole thing. And it's kind of fun too. You have like different people like Ethan Suplee, who was on My Name Is Earl and Boy Meets World. Like, he's in there somewhere, and it's like a whole thing. I kind of enjoyed myself with it, to be honest. And it's crazy to me that I'm thinking like, oh, this is gonna be a wild ass like sex comedy. I was like, no, it's like really tame. Like, yes, you see titties, but like other than that, I'm like, it's not even anything that crazy. So it surprised me, if anything. So I thought that was interesting. So the next thing I watched, I had to break it up into 2 because, you have to do that when you watch Titanic from 1997. Yeah, I mean, this movie, if you don't already know, I mean, it's a small film about a boat, gotta tell you, I got that from Kate Winslet's Inside the Actors Studio. I love that. This movie honestly just solidified to me that, really honestly, after watching this and also like Heavenly Creatures and like just other things, truly, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, whatever, it just solidifies to me that like Kate Winslet really has always been and will continue to be that bitch. Like, honestly, like it just solidifies that for me, truly. I kind of love that. But yeah, it's James Cameron. It's about the fucking Titanic. What else do you want me to say? It's about Jack and Rose, things like that. I don't have to go that much more into it, but I did break this up between 2 days, or at least something like that. But yeah, so that's what I ended up watching. It was a good time. The next thing I watched was actually from this year, and it is currently, I think, on Netflix. I think it is a Netflix original. It is called It's What's Inside. So this movie is a Greg Jardin movie. He is a guy who I think has done like music videos and stuff like that too, but this is his directorial debut kind of a thing. So yeah, he's an interesting dude. This is kind of like a sci-fi movie a little bit too. I'm not like Sci-Fi Channel, but like we'll talk about one of those in a minute. But like more so like, you know, it's not, like there's horror elements a little bit, but pretty much what it's about is about these groups of friends from college, and one of them is getting married, and a pre-wedding like reunion that happens pretty much goes into like this crazy nightmare for these friends, when pretty much what happens is that this like thing that one of the guys like has developed pretty much makes it so that each person goes into somebody else's body, and their thoughts and, you know, everything are kind of transmitted between the bodies, which is really interesting. Yeah, this is something you have to pay attention to for sure when you're watching it, because again, people are switching bodies and everything, so you kind of have to keep that in mind. But really, for a feature debut from this guy Greg, I thought it was a pretty good time personally, and you know, it's very much like that kind of I don't know if it's for the youths necessarily, but I definitely, you know, I kind of enjoyed myself with it, to be honest. So, you know, I would check it out if you do have the Netflix as well. Like, you know, why not? If you're kind of interested in that, and you want to see what the youths might be watching or whatever, or, you know, just see like, yeah, it's really stylish, I think, and like has good use of color and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed myself with it personally. The next thing I watched after this was actually was on Criterion Channel, because the Teen Apocalypse trilogy, which I did buy the Blu-ray of, is currently on Criterion Channel, and so I decided to pull up, because I hadn't watched this movie in a minute, but I decided to watch The Doom Generation from 1995. This is a Greg Araki movie. It is about Jordan White, who's played by James Duval, Amy Blue, who is a young Rose McGowan. They pick up a drifter named Xavier, who's played by Jonathan Sheck, and pretty much like it's their journey of I don't even know where the hell they're going, to be honest. Like they just kind of go into like you know, they go on the road, and it's a road movie kind of. I listened to this with the cast and director commentary, so I actually was not listening to the movie. I was listening to the people in the movie talk about the movie and the director. But it was a good time. I liked their little banter with one another, and I kind of decided, I think, that I was going to do this next year. So I think I'm going to end up doing some of these movies next year for the show. So that'll be a good time. So be on the lookout for that, I guess. But yeah. Next thing I watched after that was actually for upcoming episodes coming out this week. Actually, it is Letters to Satan Claus from 2020. So this movie, if you don't already know, this is about a girl named Holly who goes back to her hometown of Ornaments, and which is like kind of a Christmas themed town, if you will. Anyway, so what happens is that this demon, Santa Claus, of her past, they're pretty much like having to kind of fight against it, and yeah, try to protect Ornaments pretty much. This is a sci-fi original movie. I told you it was a sci-fi movie. This movie is actually really, really fun though. It's so evident to me that the writer of this movie, and you'll hear me talk about it, but like he definitely enjoys the tropes of a Hallmark movie, and he wanted to infuse horror into this script. And, you know, I think if anything, like it's a fever dream that it even happened. Like, you know, you can tell like he did an interview on a YouTube channel actually, and it's just one of those things where it's kind of like amazing that it even happened. But yeah, I just thought this is way better than a lot of other sci-fi original movies, and I think like it's a really fun time. It's low budget, of course, but I really do think like this has a lot going for it, in my opinion. So yeah, it's also a little bit gay, so it's always appreciated. There's like a gay character. Satan Claus themselves is kind of like non-binary. Like there's some cast in it that's also like queer, just in real life. So I don't know, it was a good time personally, so why the hell not? Yeah. So, like I said, I watched Go as well. And then I took a little bit of time to not watch stuff. But when I came back to movies where I was watching, I decided to also watch a movie that I'm doing this month as well. It's celebrating 30 years. I watched Richie Rich from 1994. So, this is about Richie Rich, played by Macaulay Culkin. Well, just some shit goes down because there's Lawrence Van Doe, who is John Larroquette. He is trying to take over the family empire of the Riches. And then, shit ensues from there, really. We're going to be doing that on the pod. That'll be super fun. I gave this like a 3, if anything, a little heart. I definitely have some nostalgia for this movie, but for the most part, I think this movie is like a super silly, fun movie. Like, there's nothing about it where I'm like, it's terribly aged or anything like that. Like, I think it's fine. It is the movie that like Macaulay Culkin kind of did right before he retired for a while in terms of acting, which, I can respect. And yeah, I just think it was a good time personally. So, I'm glad I watched it. I had to watch it on my phone because I was watching it on Netflix in Canada. And I was like, because I didn't feel like paying for it, to be honest. So I was like, well, I have a VPN, so I'll just use that. And it wouldn't do it on my TV. So I was like, okay, whatever. It wouldn't cast it to my TV either. So that was annoying. But other than that, it was fine. The next thing I watched was actually, I did not go see Wicked this month because I did not feel like it. I don't really like going to the theater like that, to be honest. I went and saw The Substance, of course, but like, I'm just not the one to go to the theaters like that and, whatever. Anyway, but I decided to watch a little film that is like, what the fuck is it now? Like 80 years old now? I decided to watch The Wizard of Oz from 1939. If you don't know what The Wizard of Oz is about, I don't know how that would be possible, but it's about Dorothy from Kansas, and she goes to a magical world, and she is now having to find her way to Oz to go see The Wizard of Oz to try to get the fuck back home. And in doing this, she meets a scarecrow, a tin man, and a cowardly lion, and she also happens upon a witch, a green witch. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I ended up giving this a 4 and a little heart. I really did enjoy this. I know one of my shout out Barbie from my Jurassic Park episode, she hates The Wizard of Oz. Oh my god, she hates those monkeys and just like not a fan. I liked it. I mean, I definitely watched this back in the day when I was a kid. And just seeing it now, I'm just like, it's so nice to watch. And like, I don't know, I don't have a problem with it really. And so, yeah, it was a good time. And plus I watched it in like the 4K, like Ultra HD that was on HBO or whatever. So I enjoyed myself with that. So it was a good time. I'm not gonna lie. The next thing I watched was actually in concert, well, not really, with I didn't watch it the same day or anything, but I did watch Happy Death Day. So I decided I was going to watch Happy Death Day 2U, which is the sequel. And pretty much what it's about this guy who is actually the dude in the beginning of in the movie. He's the Asian guy. Who is, I think, roommates with like Carter or whatever, who is like the guy that, is with Tree throughout the movie. Anyway, he is working on some stuff with some time stuff or whatever, and he just shit goes down pretty much. Tree's back, and she is stuck in this parallel universe. She is now having to kind of deal with all this, and some other shit happens too, where I don't know how to explain it really, but like this movie for me, I think I ended up giving it a 3.5 personally. I still liked the movie. It was not like terrible necessarily. However, I don't think I liked it as much as the original personally, but I had a good time with it. I think if you are a fan of these movies, I do think there is something to be said for, just having, this is a fine little time. And I'm sure I can get the like double feature of this or whatever. So I'm sure I can do that. But yeah, that's what I ended up watching because I was like, let me finish this up now. The next thing I watched was actually because I wanted to, not that I've been trying to watch all of his films, but, I have watched a few of them. I decided to watch Eyes Wide Shut from 1999, and that is Stanley Kubrick's last movie he did before he died. This is about Bill Hartford, played by Tom Cruise, and his wife Alice, played by his real-time wife at the time, Nicole Kidman. After his wife admits to having like sexual fantasies about a man that she just like met by chance, He becomes like obsessed with having like a sexual encounter outside of his marriage, and he discovers there's like an underground sex cult kind of thing, and they attend one of the meetings. And for me at least, so this movie is about 2.5 hours, I think, like probably a little, yeah, something like that. It's pretty long. And for me, I didn't have much to say about it. I gave it a 3.5 and a heart. I think I liked it fine enough. It's very much a thing where it's like, this movie was kind of, I think it was not marketed great, or I think it was marketed incorrectly, where they're thinking of like, oh my god, this is like a really really sexy movie or whatever. But the thing is that it's not actually that sexy of a movie, to be honest. I mean, like, there's a little bit of sex in it, I guess. Like there's some Nicole Kidman ass, I guess, like that's cool. You might see her titties. I think you see her titties, yeah. But there's something like that. But like other than that, it's not like it's super sexy. And that's kind of the whole thing, is that like Tom Cruise can't like cheat on his wife. Like he doesn't do it, so it's a whole thing. And I don't know. It was fine. Like I didn't dislike it necessarily, but I wasn't like in super love with it. But I did add it to my Amazon wish list. So I would probably watch it. I'd probably own it. Like it would be a fine time to watch it again when I feel like it. And it's also like a little Christmas movie too, because it takes place kind of around Christmas. So it's kind of interesting. And the last movies I watched was actually from like yesterday, I guess, or kind of today. Like, I started them yesterday. I finished them today at the end of the month. I decided to watch something because it was going off a Criterion channel and I had meant to watch it already. This is a movie with Jack Nicholson and Randy Quaid. It's called The Last Detail. This is a Hal Ashby movie. This movie is about two Navy men, one played by Otis Young, and the other one is played by Jack Nicholson. This is from 1973, so they probably started in 72. Anyway, they're ordered to bring a young offender, played by Randy Quaid, to Navy prison, and they decided to show him one last good time along the way. And it's interesting. This movie has like a young Carol Kane in it. It also has like a young Nancy Allen in it as well. Gilda Radner's in there for like a minute, like as part of like not a Hare Krishna group, but like kind of one of those woo woo like religion groups or whatever back then. But yeah, I did like this. I gave it a 3 and a little heart. I kind of liked it because like you would think like, oh, it must be some like kind of undercover gay a little bit, kind of, just because like Jack Nicholson looks really good on the cover and like he just looks like a fucking village guy, like a village person. It's not though. But some maybe could argue whether or not like there's some homosexual like undertones or whatever. I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I didn't dislike it necessarily, but I'm not like clamoring to watch it again necessarily. But I thought it was a perfectly fine time, so, and I'm glad I finally watched it because I would be like, oh, well, I've always kind of heard of this. Like, why not the hell watch it, So there was that. And then the final movie I watched was actually the newest, In Search of Darkness, which was 1990 to 1994. I got a backer link for that because I did back that project. And so, yeah, it's for 1990 to 1994. This is a 6-hour documentary. That's right, 6 hours. I watched it partly on my computer and then partly on the television because I cast it from my MacBook. But yeah, like this is about pretty much it's the In Search of Darkness movies. They chronicle all different sorts of movies from a certain decade. So they have a literal 3-part series of movies that chronicle all of the 80s. So that means literally there's different movies in each of these documentaries. So this one is about 1990 to 1984. So film icons and genre experts, whether it be critics or whatever, they're all kind of sharing their observations, their experiences, because some of them were in the films that are chronicled, and also just analyze to help kind of deconstruct, reframe, and kind of recontextualize this like sort of lost decade, quote unquote, of horror, which would be like the 90s and especially the mid 90s, but like the early 90s, but like, yeah, but it was a good time. They talked about all sorts of fucking movies. There will be a second part where it's 1995 to 1999, of course. But yeah, but I thought it was a good time. Like Mike Flanagan's in there. You got Heather Langenkamp. You got a couple different people. So it was kind of John Carpenter's there and all this. So I don't know. I kind of liked it. And yeah, will I watch it again? I mean, it's 6 goddamn hours, but like, I'll get the Blu-ray of it. So I could probably push it on whenever I want to. So, but yeah, that's in terms of the movies that I watched, I guess. And then in terms of TV shows, so I did start watching on Netflix Arcane, because they're in their season 2. I had been watching that, and I have not finished that yet, but I'll get around to it at some point or another. Yeah, that's about it's from League of Legends, the kind of like video game. It's a kind of a story of that. But yeah, it was a good time. And then the other thing I have been mainly watching, which also ties back to like Girl Interrupted and also The Apartment a little bit, is I have been watching Mad Men. And I have gotten on to season 2 of that show. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. Yeah, Mad Men. It's interesting because like Elizabeth Moss, of course, was in Mad Men very well, and she was in The Handmaid's Tale and all these things. But one of her early-ish roles, kind of, or when she was still a teenager, technically, she was in Girl Interrupted. So that brings it back to that. And then also, you have The Apartment, which is a 1960s movie, and very much if you watch Mad Men, you can definitely see kind of the influence that something like The Apartment would have had on that movie or on that show particularly. So it's kind of interesting how that is. But yeah, and they even talk about The Apartment like in Mad Men as well, because it takes place in 1960. That's where it starts, and so they talk about it a little bit. So yeah, but that's what I've been watching. So yeah, those are the TV shows I've been watching. Those are the movies I've been watching. And of course I have all the things to do for this month. So I have most of everything is really recorded. I just have to actually go and edit it and just release it every week. So that's what I will be doing. And yeah, and then I guess just to kind of say it now, if anything, I probably will end up putting this on social as well. But I do plan on taking a break after the new year as well. So I will be probably not posting in January. I am doing an episode, not on my show, but I am recording another episode for another show. So that'll be coming out in January, I think. So be on the lookout for that. But I just wanted to take a little bit of a break. So yeah, you will not be getting any episodes in January, I don't think. However, I will be coming back in February. I have my schedule thought out, so there will be content coming. I just need, Mama needs a break. Okay. I just need to not post something for a month and just kind of enjoy myself and not have to worry about podcasting necessarily. So yeah, that's pretty much that, but yeah, that's what I've been watching. But if you want to, let me know what you've been watching. Like, have you watched any new TV shows, or have you watched any movies that are kind of new to you, or anything like that? I'd love to hear about it. You can follow the show on social media, on Instagram, Cult Cinema Circle. You can also find me on Blue Sky at Cult Cinema Circle. I got rid of the Twitter. And then also Jesse Kremp at Letterboxd as well. So yeah, go follow me on there. Send me an email, cultcinemacircle@gmail.com if you want to. And, rate, comment, subscribe, whatever you do, to get more eyes on the show. But until next month, or I guess until after the new year, I guess till February, you'll still hear episodes, don't worry. But until next time, thanks so much and take care. Bye.